Welcome back to the Larson Show. Glad to get your phone calls and your emails live on the Radio Northwest Network throughout Oregon and Washington on great affiliate stations like Astoria and KAST and KACI in the Dalles, and, of course, our flagship station, FM News 101. I got to tell you, Ben Pollock is with us right now, and Ben would like to replace Congressman Kurt Schrader in Oregon's 5th Congressional District. Ben, good to have you back.
Hey, great to be back, Lars.
So tell me what your take is on Schrader's position on Obamacare. It sounds like you're saying that the man's either lying or doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. As I think a lot of your listeners know, Kurt Schrader came out this weekend and said that Obama's plan was grossly misleading when he said that if you wanted to keep your plan, you could. And this is just more of what we come to expect from Kurt Schrader. It's just typical of opportunistic politicians. He sides with Obama and the far left, says Obamacare is here to stay, but then he attempts to cover it up with his middle-of-the-road rhetoric and his reputation as a reasonable guy. And I don't think any member of Congress who actually read the bill could be genuinely surprised that 150,000 Oregonians are losing their existing insurance due to this law.
Well, in fact, a lot of people seem to be aware that that was going to happen. Even the Obama administration was aware all the way back into about 2010, where they were they kind of they took a soft approach to telling us about it. But there were people who said, yeah, we know that some people, maybe a few million, are going to lose their coverage, and then they acted as though that's not a big deal. Even the president's still acting like, oh, it's only 5% of the population. You mean only 15 million people, Mr. President? Gee, that's nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And in the same interview, too, Kurt Schrader goes on this tangent and talks about how, as a business owner, he knew that policies would get canceled. Well, then why didn't he speak up? Why didn't he ever vote to defund Obamacare or repeal Obamacare? He had plenty of opportunities in the House to do so. And, he supports Obamacare, and he pretends like he doesn't. It's really darn simple. And what we need are no more of these professional double-talking politicians who read the polls to know that Obamacare is a bad idea. I've known Obamacare is a bad idea from the start. That's why I've worked in the past to get good conservatives like Ted Cruz elected. And we need to replace it. And I think the Republican Study Committee actually came out with a pretty good free market replacement of Obamacare recently, and you actually mentioned some of the points earlier in your show.
Oh, the ones that are also being pushed by Dr. Monica Webby, the brain surgeon who's running against Merkley. Yeah,
those are great ideas. Allow Americans to purchase insurance across state lines, allow young people to purchase catastrophic plans, enable small businesses to pool together to get the same purchasing power as large companies. Common sense medical malpractice reforms that limit trial lawyer fees and non-economic damages, ensuring that all Americans have a standard tax deduction for health care expenses, and, of course, expanding health savings accounts, which Obamacare gutted, by the way, to allow everybody to use pre-tax dollars on health spending. So there's a lot we can do to increase consumer choice, decrease health care costs. And anyone who says the Republicans don't have a plan just simply isn't listening.
Well, and here's the thing. The original, pitch by the president and his cronies was health emergencies are costing people everything they have, all their assets, their house, their savings account, et cetera.
Right.
The number one suggestion, allow the exchanges to sell less expensive catastrophic plans, as you say, that would cover major expenses but not routine care. If you want to bend the cost curve and get people, using medical services only when they're necessary, that would do it, because the average family would say, well, geez, for a small amount of money, we can cover ourselves against catastrophe. But when Junior needs to go see the doctor, we decide, that it's serious enough to go to see the doctor and not just sniffles, and at that point, you go and you pay out of pocket. Well, the best way to get people to limit something is to say you're paying for it out of your own pocket. And then if you gave them a health savings account and they said, well, we've got $1,000 in the account, it's only February. If we start going to the doctor 2 or 3 times a month, the $1,000's going to be gone real fast, or $2,000 or whatever it is. You're right. Those are things that would actually bring down the cost of medical care in America, but it would still be available and it wouldn't be destructive to somebody's entire net worth.
absolutely right. And I support all of these proposals that recently were released. And you've got the voters of the 5th District have a very clear choice here. Kurt Schrader supports Obamacare. He says, that Obama misled the public. Well, Kurt Schrader misled the public too. Even on his own website, it said up through this morning, if you like your plan, you can keep it. So Kurt Schrader's part of the problem. And the voters have a very clear choice. I'm the only one here that opposes Obamacare, and I'm the only one that actually has an alternative for Obamacare. So we're hoping that the people are as upset with Kurt Schrader and his deception as I am.
Now, do you think see, here's the trick though. Can you get Oregonians to recognize that when they vote for an incumbent like Schrader, they're voting for exactly these kind of policies? And if they vote for Ben Pollock, that what they're saying is we want to take Schrader out, Pollock goes to Congress, we already have a majority in the House, but we can always use more. Then if you get a majority in the House and the Senate and you pass a repeal of Obamacare, say shortly after November of next year, and then the president says, well, I'm not going to sign it, then pure public pressure could come to bear, and you could say, Mr. President, if the House and the Senate have voted for it, and America's been suffering under it now directly for more than a year, and we've seen the failed way the government approaches health care, the failed websites, the people being canceled who were promised that they wouldn't be canceled, to the point where even Bill Clinton is calling out the president on this today, or yesterday, and today as well, that I would think then the folks in the 5th District might say, yeah, I'm a Democrat and I voted for Schrader, but boy, if he's going to stand for this kind of nonsense, I got to vote for the other guy.
Yeah, I think we've got a great opportunity here. The voters of the 5th District are going to see their health care bills going up next year. People who are working hard, working families, are going to see their health care bills go up even after they receive their Obamacare subsidies. And they're not going to be happy, and they're going to want it to change. And there's going to be massive pressure on Congress and on the administration to do something about it. And so we need people in Congress who are ready to act when the time comes.
And in fact, the president's been offered a few opportunities. Some of them, in hindsight, just going back a couple of months, it kind of makes me wonder why the president, back when the Republicans were demanding, do something about Obamacare, or we won't fund the government. Mm-hmm. If he'd walked in and said, you know what, let's put it on hold for a year till it's really up and running fine. He had an open opportunity to do that at that point, and it would have looked reasonable. It would have made him, he had already tried to cast the Republicans as unreasonable, which I don't think they were, but he could have said, I'm the more reasonable guy. I'll give in. And it would have given him the gift of not having to watch this rollout, this train wreck with all the questions about security and spending and incompetence and everything else. He would have avoided all that. But for some reason, this is his signature piece of legislation, and he won't let it go even if it's bad for the country.
Right. And the funny thing is, he could have gotten away probably, at least initially here, with a delaying the individual mandate. But now we've seen how it's been a failure, and the outcry for a full repeal is growing louder and louder. So Obama, from his perspective, he made a huge mistake here.
Yeah, because now what's he going to do? If he now backs down 3 or 4 months into it with millions of people with canceled policies, how does he unwind that watch at this point?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happened. Personally, my policy was canceled, so I've tried to sign up with Cover Oregon, and of course failed.
Oh, you mean we've got a new name for it? And in fact, you can go to Barry, Oregon, which leads right back to the non-functioning website.
Yeah.
It seems kind of stunning to me, too, that there's all this attention on $600 million spent at the federal level and not nearly as much attention to the fact that half that amount was spent in Oregon with a website that, if there is a way to be less functional than the Obamacare website, Oregon is it.
It's just absurd. Leave it to Oregon to find a way to be less efficient than the federal government.
But you know what? They're specialists at this, Ben. Look at how they... Are you old enough to remember the DMV computer fiasco? No, maybe not. Okay. There was a woman named Jane Cease who headed up this whole operation. They've spent $30 million, which back in those days was a lot of money. Today it's a rounding error on Obamacare. But they spent $30 million. The whole thing crashed and burned. Yeah. And you know what the state of Oregon did? They promoted her. They promoted her to a bigger, better job with a bigger paycheck. And then the city of Portland had a computer system for water bureau billing that wasted $30 or $40 million and it completely tied the system in knots, and that screwed up. And now we've got Cover Oregon. I mean, these people have perfected the art of computer meltdown.
It's pretty impressive. I don't know how they do it, honestly. I don't know how they find such incompetent folks to make these systems, but they always manage to. And we're getting, I mean, people like me who've had their insurance canceled, we are getting worried. It's been almost a month and a half now, and we still can't sign up through Cover Oregon. And it's just a complete disaster, a complete train wreck. And people like Kurt Schrader, who still stand by this law, they're going to have to pay for it at the ballot box.
Tell me this, where can people see you next, and where's your website?
You can go to my website at benforcongress.com, and we're actually going to have an event this weekend. I'm going to get a big volunteer group together. We're going to pound on some doors throughout the district, so there will be more information about that on our website and on our Facebook page.
If people want to help you out, how could they do that?
The number one thing to do is you can go on the website there, sign up for updates, contribute to the campaign. I hate to drive home that point, but
you got it.
Money. And Kurt Schrader's very well funded, and he's going to do everything he can to, stop the people from getting what they want.
Well, we've had Schrader on before. He doesn't come on a regular basis, but I'd love to get him on and ask him a few questions about this, but I can probably bet he's not going to want to do that. Ben, thanks very much for the time.
Thank you.
benforcongress.com. Back in a moment. You've got the Lars Larson Show.